regil, something regular. Right? I assume the word regular comes from the Hebrew word regil, right? The word in Lashon HaKodesh. That's what it means. Now that you could darshan it to say that it means there's a jewel. A Margela is also a pearl but really it means something regular. It's a very common expression in the Gemara. Right? This is something that Rava was wont to say. Okay, and that's the name of the mimer. And if someone asks you what mimer you're learning, you say Margela befuma deRava. That's the name of this mimer. Everybody knows this mimer. Very, very famous mimer. It's as you can see, it said Shabbos Parshas V'Yishlach, Toiv Kislev, which is Yud Zayin, Tavshin Mem Vav. Now that happens to be, Jay, could you close the door, please? That happens to be a very important date. There's two things happening in this mimer. There's a mimer within the mimer, which we'll already get to today. The Rebbe asks a question in the first paragraph. He doesn't answer that question until the third page. In between that paragraph and the third page, there's a tangent, so to speak. And that tangent is all about the importance of Avodah b'simcha. And it's very, 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 it's a watershed mimer for that reason. So it's also very important when the Rebbe said this mimer. This mimer was said Yud Zayin Kislev Tavshin Mem Vav. Now, 2 days later, on Yud Tes Kislev Tavshin Mem Vav, the trial of the books started. Right? The famous trial of the Rebbe's of the library, and we know because we saw in the face of the Rebbe that was an extremely difficult time for the Rebbe, extremely, and yet it's very interesting that the Rebbe gave. This is the mimer that the Rebbe said 2 days before, the importance of simcha, and there's also a very, very important watershed is what they say, right? Sicha on Yud Tes Kislev, also from the same year, Yud Tes Kislev Tavshin Mem Vav. It's printed in Chelik Lamed, I believe, Chelik Lamed in Likutei Sichos. Very, very important sikh on Yud Tes Kislev, a completely new take on Yud Tes Kislev, big chiddush on what Yud Tes Kislev is all about, and that was also exactly the same time, right? So very, very interesting time, important time, and I'll use that word again, it's such a cool word, I want to sound intelligent, watershed, right? It means like everything comes from there. And it definitely something important. We'll see. You'll see what the Rebbe has to say about it. We'll talk about it. It's really quite something. Okay. I'll just make an announcement. I hope Dr. November is going to be extremely happy about this. No eating in Chassidus shir. Say that. Coffee, tea, vodka. Good wine. Only good wine. No problem. No food. Okay? Seder, you've heard Dr. November be upset the fact that I let people eat in the Chassidus shir now. Well,
I've not been this now.
Oh, well, yeah, okay. So he's always been very upset because for 20 years we had a rule no food in Chassidus, and I finally gave up. So I'm not giving up because I see it does make a difference when people are sitting there being misbeinen on their food, and if I asked them the name of the mimer, they wouldn't know, but they could tell me what food they ate. There's a famous story there. Frierdiker Rebbe walking by two Chassidim once in a base medrash and shul. It was Shabbos morning and they were learning Chassidus, and they each had a glass tea. You don't have to know Yiddish to know what that means, right? They each had a glass tea next to them, and the Rebbe walked by and he heard from behind him, ah. So he turned around and he said, was that from the tea or the Chassidus? So we want to make sure it's from the Chassidus. If I might do it on my coffee because it's this good Brazilian coffee, but there is a story about a man who had a dream that he was giving a speech in the House of Lords in England, and he woke up and he was. So my greatest fear in life is being that person. So I make sure that I have a cup of coffee and Chassidus in the morning. Okay, we just gave an introduction to this mimer. Now, I apologize for this. This is not my idea, but Mayanot asks me to do this, so I do because I'm such a good soldier. But it is useful. It used to be just audio, and there would be a phone sitting there because there's a group called Chassidus brings. Hello, Yossi. Chassidus brings Mashiach. It's a WhatsApp group. This goes up on that WhatsApp group. So if you ever miss a class, you can catch it there. I can put you on the WhatsApp group. And I was just in New York at the wedding of one of our students, Josh Gunman, and Shabbos Day for bring with Yufra from 770 had 15, 20 former Mayanoters. Unbelievable for bringing Baruch Hashem. Yeah, I left at 5:30 in the afternoon because I wanted to see my grandchildren. They were still going. And numerous guys said that they are still up to date in the Mimer that we're learning in this class because of this. So I find it annoying, but it's worth it because they're still. That's what Mimer is starting after. I said, why? Okay, I watch it all the time. I said, really? I said, yeah. Okay. We tell the same jokes. I said, okay. Okay. Beseder. Does someone have a blank piece of paper that you can pass around the room, please? I'll get everybody's name just to make sure that the office knows who's in here and all that. Okay? They probably do, but that's just the easiest. Okay? We will try to start at 7:30. Okay? I mean, I'm dependent on buses, so if the Arab bus company that sends the bus to my Jewish neighborhood every day, if they decide not to send the bus that comes at 7:01. So then I'm going to be a few minutes late, but usually I'm here. Okay, so we try to start at 7:30. Okay, Margela befuma deRava. There was something common in the mouth of Rava, meaning something that Rava said a lot. And what's that? Tachlis chochma, tshuva maisim tovim. Thank you. The ultimate expression of chochma is tshuva and maisim tovim. Now, we'll see what that means, because it's going to mean something that we wouldn't expect. Shenemar, now this is the Gemara. It's Gemara in Brachos. The Rebbe is going to actually mention its Brachos stuff, Yud Zayin, which is very unusual that the Rebbe is going to mention that in a minor, but okay. Shenemar, Reishis Chochma Yiras Havai is a pasuk. Pasuk in Tehillim. Reishis Chochma Yiras Hashem. The beginning of Chochma. The Reishis of Chochmah, however we translate Reishis, is awe of Hashem. Seichel Tov, a good Seichel. Seichel is intellect. L'koloi Seihem, to all that do them. Okay? Interesting pasuk. Now, the Gemara then goes and says about that pasuk, L'loimdeihem loim emar, it does not say to the ones that learn them, Ella lo oisehem, to the ones that do them. Okay, that's the end of the Gemara. Which is interesting diuk in the pasuk, right?
Why?
The pasuk.
Why is it rare, or why is it unusual that the Rebbe brings down a...
In Maimarim, they don't, if you learn Maimarim, you will notice the Rebbeim never tell you what's the source of what they're quoting. They just quote it. Now, you and I, being ignorant, like to have footnotes below that tells us where this is, which is very nice for us people who don't know everything off by heart.
Yes.
Right? But that being said, the Rebbeim just don't tell us where they're, they say, Amru Chazal, they quote a Chazal. Sometimes they'll say the Medrash says. So then it's probably not a Gemara, it's in one of the Midrashim. I mean, there's Medrash in Gemara, but it means it's not in a Gemara.
Yeah.
Why? The Ramban does the same. The Ramban in his Perish and Chumash quotes pasuk after pasuk after pasuk. And if you don't know Tanakh Baal Peh, you wouldn't know. He often will just weave a pasuk into his commentary, just because the pasuk says what he wants to say, so he'll just weave the pasuk in. Baruch Hashem, there's someone named Dr. Chevelle, an American rabbi, who passed away probably 20 years ago, lived the end of his life here in Eretz Yisrael, so he published a Ramban through Mosada Rav Kook that has all of the Makaras down below, so now us normal folk can learn Ramban and enjoy it, as opposed to try to figure what's he quoting, where is it? And then you're looking in what's called a concordance. Well, actually now you can look in Google, but in the old days you'd look in a concordance and you'd find one of the words from the pasuk and you look up that word in the concordance and it will tell you everywhere that word appears in Tanakh. And so you find the pasuk and you look it up. But Dr. Chevelle, Rabbi Dr. Chevelle, took away all the work. Did a fantastic job. He brought Ramban, he made Ramban accessible to your average person. And it's amazing. The Ramban on Chumash is just absolutely astounding. Something that you should all learn while you're down here in this little ball floating in space. Okay, Reishis Chochma Yiras Havaya. The beginning of Chochma, which seems to indicate something about the most important aspect of Chochma, is Yiras Hashem. Some people translate Yira as fear. It really literally means awe. Yira in Chassidus comes from, it's explained that Yira is the same letters as Re'iyah, which means sight, to see, meaning to be sensitive to the presence of God in our midst. That's Yira. As opposed to Ava, love. Seichel tov l'chol ha'aseh. A good seichel to all that do it. Now it isn't do them. Seichel isn't about doing, seichel is about learning. And so that's exactly what Chazal say in the Gemara. It doesn't say the ones, it's a seichel tov for the learners of them, but rather for the doers of them. How's that, what's doing got to do with seichel? V'hainu, the Rebbe continues, from that which it says that Reishis Chochma Yiras Havaya, which you don't have to translate anymore, move on. From that, it's understood Tachlis Chochma. Tachlis is usually the ultimate purpose. Hu tshuva is tshuva, right? That says two things: Tachlis Chochma, tshuva, and Maisim Tevim. And then it brings a pasuk. First part of the pasuk says Reishis Chochma is Yiras Hashem, so that's tshuva, and Seichel Tov l'chol oiseihem, that's Maisim Tevim, because it says oiseihem, the ones that do it, do them. We're going to talk about seichel again, but okay, do them. So it seems like the pshat in the pasuk is the ultimate purpose of chokhmah, of intellectual endeavor, is to come to a state of tshuva and to do mitzvahs. That seems to be what the pasuk means, but interesting enough, it's not going to be what the pasuk means, which is quite astounding because that certainly seems to be what it's saying. Right. Move on to tachlis chokhmah hu tshuva. And from that, shenemar, that it says, seichel tov l'chol oiseihem, a good seichel, a good intellect to all that do them, move on. It's understood. Shetachlis chochma u'maisim tevim, that the ultimate purpose, because tachlis is often purpose, right? What's the tachlis? What's the purpose of it? Hu maisim tevim. It's good deeds. And when you say good deeds, we mean mitzvahs, which includes helping an old lady cross the street, but includes other things also. And this is mentioned explicitly in the pasuk. Seichel tov l'chol oiseihem. It's a good seichel for all who do them. The idea of maisim tevim, doing, action, deeds, is mentioned explicitly in the pasuk. Oiseihem daika, the ones that do them specifically. V'lo, not only that, the Rebbe says, elo, but afterwards, this pasuk is explained in Torah Shabbat Peh, in the oral Torah. Meaning the Gemara in Brachos emphasizes, if you didn't notice in the pasuk, make sure that you do notice that it says, it doesn't say l'loim dehem loinem. It doesn't say it's a seichel tov to the ones who learn them, ela loiseim, the ones who do them. Hainu shezeu b'diuk. This is exact. Okay. That's the end of the Rebbe's discussion of the pasuk of the Maimer Chazal. Fairly straightforward. Yeah, we can go weiter. We can go further.
Yeah.
Okay. V'yadua Maimer Kveitus Meicham Yad Menosi Doreinu B'Zeh. And we know the statement of my teacher, my father-in-law, the leader of our generation, which is how the Rebbe always refers to the previous Rebbe, right? The Nasi Adar, the leader of the generation, very, very, very rarely, maybe two places. One that I know of, I've seen with my eyes, another that I heard about when I exclaimed how interesting it was that the Rebbe refers to himself as Nasi Adar. Someone said, oh yeah, there's one other sikha where the Rebbe says that. Okay. So generally, the Rebbe refers to his father-in-law as the leader of the generation. The Rebbe, obviously this was said in Yiddish, so that the Rebbe would say, Der Rebbe de Schwer. The Rebbe, the father-in-law. That's how the Rebbe would refer to. And then he'd say, Nasi Dareinu. B'zeh, Mishabes Parshas V'yishlach. A mimer that the Frierdiker Rebbe said on Shabbos Parshas V'yishlach Tafresh Pei Tes. So you should be able to figure out when Tafresh Pei Tes is, since what's our year now? Tafshin Pei Dalet. So the Peis are what in Goyish years? 20s, right? We're in the 2020s, so this is 95 years ago, right? 1929. Okay, Tafresh Pei Tes. The Rebbe was still in Russia. Tafresh Pei Tes moved. He left Russia the following year and moved to Poland. The Tzadis, the 1930s. Frierdiker Rebbe was in Poland, right? Got out, Baruch Hashem, was chased by Nazis for much of the end of that time. He was in Warsaw, literally chased around by the Nazis, moving from place to place, escaping bombs, all sorts of exciting things. Got to America in 1940. Tes Adar, the 9th day of Adar, 1940. Frierdiker Rebbe got to America. It was actually a fascinating story. The American government still had diplomatic relations with Nazi Germany. For you Americans, you can be reasonably depressed by that fact. Until Pearl Harbor, the Americans had diplomatic relations with Nazi Germany. Franklin Roosevelt, what a hero, right? So that happened to be useful because they used those diplomatic relations to get word to German intelligence. German intelligence tended to be anti-Hitler. I mean, the CIA of Germany was anti-Hitler. They tried to kill him. There's famous stories about trying to kill him. Very interesting stuff. Fascinating letter from a son to a father, and the father back to the son, a son who was working in the intelligence. They had gotten a plan to blow up a train that Hitler was on. And the son asked the father, should I do this? And the father said, you should be willing to give up your life to save the fatherland. And kill him. I mean, there were a few people like that, Baruch Hashem, so you can fly Lufthansa if you want to. They got in touch with German intelligence. German intelligence found the Rebbe in Warsaw, arrested him, processed him, kept him out of the hands of the SS. That was the most important thing that they had to try to do. Ultimately, David will be very excited, moved the Rebbe from Poland through Germany. They had to take the Rebbe all the way through Germany in 1940 to Sweden, where they put the Rebbe on a boat and he got to America.
Why
Previously. What?
Why do they want to help him?
The Americans had some connections to some people who were anti-Hitler in the German establishment.
How were the Americans convinced to help?
The Jews in America said, some Jews in America tried to help Frierdiker Rebbe. So,
This was the Rebbe's father-in-law?
Rebbe's father-in-law. Frierdiker means previous. Right. So that's how the previous Rebbe got out. It's an unbelievable story. It's just incredible. They had to keep him out of the hands of the SS, taking him through Europe, through Germany. So if the SS got hold of him, that was the end. Right? So they were, why? Who knows why? I mean, God runs the world. It doesn't make any sense, but that's how the Frierdiker Rebbe was saved. The Rebbe was in Paris. The Rebbe and the Rebbetzin managed to get to Paris, and they got passage on a boat leaving Lisbon. And they were on a particular boat. They were supposed to be on a particular boat. They got a telegram from the Frierdiker Rebbe, do not go on the boat. That was the famous passenger ship that was sunk by a German submarine. And they got on the next boat, which is the last boat that left Europe, and got to America in 1941. It's pretty late, 1941. The Rebbe got Chaf Ches Sivan. We celebrated soon, right? Today's what, Yud Dalet? That's Rav, I don't know. confused in dates. I lost the date there somewhere on a plane. Right, so today, so the Chaf Chesiv, the 28th of Sivan, the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin made it to America.
I've been on the boat, I'm gonna say.
The Frierdiker Rebbe told them not to get on the boat. How did the Frierdiker Rebbe know the boat was going to sink? How did Rebbeim know anything? I don't know. But they do, and if we're smart, we listen. I'll tell you a story. This is a story I heard from Rabbi Grona, the Rebbe's secretary, who was in Chicago in 1946 as a student in Yeshiva. The Frierdiker Rebbe sent a group to Chicago to help open the Yeshiva in Chicago. And one of the things the Rebbe asked them to do was learn Nach. Okay. So they had a teacher, Mr. Yosef, maybe Rabbi, I'm not sure. Rabbi Grona just said Yosef Flyer. That was his name, Yosef Flyer. He was a Lubavitcher Chassid in Chicago in the time, 1946. And he was teaching them Nach. So he was teaching them Malachi. Sefer Malachi in Treyasor. So they had a class, because the Frierdiker Rebbe said you're supposed to have a class. So the second class, you think Bochurim have changed. Bochurim was 8 years ago. Same. The second class, he walked in the room and they said, okay, we had a class. The Rebbe said we're supposed to learn Nach. We learned Nach. No, we're not learning Nach today. So he said, well, what are we learning? He said, you were here in 1930 when the previous Rebbe came to Chicago, famous visit of the Frierdiker Rebbe to Chicago. You were here? Before the Rebbe got out of here, he went back to Poland. But the Rebbe came to America in 1930. The previous Rebbe came to America in 1930 to see how the community was doing. And he spent some time in Chicago. And it was called Beaker Chicago. There's a whole sefer printed about what went on. So he said, yes. So he said, okay, you have to tell us stories. We're not learning Nach. We learned Nach. The Rebbe said we have to learn Nach. We learned Nach. Now you have to tell us stories about Beaker Chicago. So one of the stories he told him, he had a friend. It's 1930, who had a son who wanted to move from Chicago to Eretz Yisrael. Right? We wanted to come here. The father wasn't so happy, obviously. It was a rather dangerous thing to do. And so the father wasn't convinced this was a great idea. He heard the Lubavitcher Rebbe is coming to town. He asked his son, why don't you go ask the Lubavitcher Rebbe if you should go there to Israel? And the son said, no, the Lubavitcher Rebbe is known as a big anti-Zionist, and I'm not going to go ask him because he's going to tell me not to go. And I don't want you to ask him either. Fine. So the father had Yechidus with the Frierdiker Rebbe. He didn't ask the Frierdiker Rebbe if his son should go, but he did ask the Frierdiker Rebbe for a bracha for his son to, meaning fait accompli that the son is going. You should get a bracha from the Rebbe. The Rebbe said to him, it's not a good time. That's what the Rebbe said to him. He now had a quandary. Well, do I tell my son or not? My son asked me not to ask the Rebbe. On the other hand, the Rebbe said it's not a good time. Should I or should I not? How did Yosef Flyer find out about this story? This gentleman, who was a friend of Yosef Flyer, gathered together his 3 best friends, one of them being this Yosef Flyer who was teaching the class, and asked them, this is the story, should I tell my son? And they said unanimously, yes, you have to tell your son. He'll be mad at you, he'll be furious at you, he might not talk to you, but you have to tell him that the Rebbe said now's not a good time. So he did. The son was furious at his father, did not listen, left anyway, and unfortunately the boat he was on sunk and he died on his way to Eretz Yisrael. 10 years later, when the Rebbe came to New York, that father had Yechidus with the previous Rebbe. And he asked the Rebbe, why didn't the Rebbe tell me what was going to happen? And the previous Rebbe said something fascinating to him. The Rebbe said, I didn't know what was going to happen. I was simply told. Those are the words the Rebbe used. I was told it's not a good time. I can only say what I'm told. That's what the Rebbe said. Yeah, I didn't know the boat was going to sink. All I knew was it's not a good time.
Like a black hole? Or?
It's called Ruach HaKodesh. It's a type of nevuah, the lowest level of nevuah. It's called Ruach HaKodesh, which never left the Jewish people.
Do we still have it nowadays?
We have even more, according to the Rebbe's Sikha in Parshas Shoftim, Tafshin Nun Aleph, 1990. The Rebbe said nevuah has returned to the Jewish people because it's written that Nevuah will return to the Jewish people before the coming of Mashiach. Nevuah has returned to the Jewish people, and he calls his father-in-law Navi. He says it explicitly. It's black and white. You can't deny that the Rebbe said that. So, but however you understand that, so there's an interesting continuation to the story. Rabbi Groner told the Rebbe, our Rebbe, this story. The Rebbe didn't know about the story. The story happened in 1946 in Chicago, right? How did I run out of copies? I made 7. Anyway, you'll have to share with someone, I'm sorry. Yes, what's your name? Here, in fact, my hat can rest somewhere else. Can't fall from there. So the Rabbi Gruner told the Rebbe the story. He heard it in 1946. He heard this story in 1946 from Mr. Flyer, Rabbi Flyer. So he was, in 1947, he started working for the Rebbe when he came back from Chicago. And he told the Rebbe this story. And the Rebbe said something fascinating. Our Rebbe said something fascinating. The previous Rebbe was still Rebbe, 1947. He said, the Rebbe said, you don't have to ask. But if you ask, you better listen. That's what the Rebbe said. You don't have to ask. You do what you want. But if you ask, you better listen.
Does that mean if you didn't ask, then it might not have...
I don't know what that means. I have no idea, and I'm not going to speculate because I don't speculate about things that I don't know about. I'm old enough to know that. Right? We don't make up stuff. We say what... we do exactly the same thing the Friedrich Rebbe said. We say what we heard. This is the story Rabbi Groner told me. To start saying drushas about the story, I'm not going to say drushas about the story because then it's me and it's probably not true. The story I know is true because Rabbi Groner told me that story. The words I just told you, the words I heard from Rabbi Groner himself, sitting in his office, and he told me this story. Not in a Farbrengen, personally sitting with him. Right? He told the story in Farbrengen, but so that I'll tell you. I can speculate. Not for us. Okay. V'yadu a mimer. What, 6th line, 7th line. V'yadu a mimer, kvek dishmeri chami admer nasi dorenu bezer, mishabes pashas v'yishlo tafreish pei tes. The Sefer Maimarim Kuntresim. There's a 3-volume set of Maimarim of the Friedrich Rebbe called Kuntresim. Kuntras is like a pamphlet, right? And they put together, I mean, when the Rebbe would verbring in different places, and they put out a pamphlet, they'd print a pamphlet of that verbringen. They then put those pamphlets, together in a sefer called Kuntresim, meaning a compilation of these pamphlets. There's 3 volumes. Generally, to this day, in Yeshiva Ketana, 13, 14, 15-year-old boards, what they call Mesivta in America. What Maimarim do they start learning in Yeshiva? Kuntresim with the Friedrich Rebbe. Those are the first Maimarim that a boy will learn when he goes after his Bar Mitzvah when he goes to Yeshiva. Right? They're generally fairly straightforward. They're not overly difficult. A lot of Aveda, a lot of talk about, serving God as opposed to deep Hasidic ideas. So that's what they start learning. Kuntresim, Sefer Maim Kuntresim, and if you look, it says down at the bottom, footnote 2, because there's Chelik Aleph. There's 3 volumes. Chelik Aleph, first volume, Chaf Ches. Page 28, Seif Amud Beis, the end of the second half of the second side of Chaf Ches, right? 2 sides, like a Gemara. Okay? So if you want to find the Maimer, you'll find it there. Shesham Maschil b'Maimer Chazal Zeh, that Maimer of the Friedrich Rebbe begins with this statement of Chazal that we just learned. Tachlis Chochma Tshuva Meisim Tevim. Right? It doesn't say, that Maimer doesn't say Margela befuma deRava. Okay? Again, if someone asks you what you're learning, you tell them Margela befuma deRava. That's the name of the Maimer you're learning. Right? The Friedrich Rebbe's Maimer is called Tachlis Chochma, because it doesn't say It doesn't give the introduction of Rava saying it just quotes the Chazal, right? That the purpose of Chokhmah, the ultimate expression of Chokhmah is tshuva meisim tev. Right? Umeisif. Now the Rebbe says that the Friediger Rebbe adds this, and it's interesting. Since it's unusual, the Rebbe is even going to explain why the Friediger Rebbe added that. Why? He's going to give a hint as to why the Friediger Rebbe might have added this. Umeisif, he adds tziyun mekareh, which means a source. Bebrachos daf yud zayin amud aleph. The Rebbe says that this Maimer Chazal is from Brachos, Gemara Brachos, daf yud zayin 17a. Right? Oh, so the Rebbe finds that unusual that the Friediger Rebbe would actually say where this is from. So the Rebbe says perhaps he's hinting at the following by virtue of saying that. This is completely unusual for a mimer, the two lines we're reading now. Okay, say that. It's here. The Yesh Lemer Remez Bezeh, you could say the Remez in this is Ki Yud Zayin, the Yud Zayin 17, of Gematria Tev. Is the Gematria of the word Tev, good. As you see at the top of the page, right? Interesting enough, when they printed this mimer, what date did they say? They didn't say Yud Zayin Kislev, they said Tev Kislev, based obviously on this line in the mimer. Right? Canal. Ubezeh Gufa, and this itself, the Tev Gufa, in good itself, Inyan Zeh Kashurim Amud Aleph. This is connected with the first page, meaning the beginning of the good. Hascholas Inyan, the beginning of this idea, meaning a very strong expression of good. Okay, parenthetical little statement that's very interesting, but okay, has nothing to do with the mimer per se. The Rebbe throws that in, and interesting enough, the Rebbe seems to be trying to explain why the Friediger Rebbe would put a makar there. Why would the Friediger Rebbe tell us where this is from? Because again, that's not something that usually happens in a mimer. Okay, so now let's see. What does the Friediger Rebbe say? Quotes this mimer Chazal that we learned at the top of the page. Umevi al zeh, he brings out this. The Chokhmah, he Torah. When we say Tachlis Chokhmah, we mean Torah. Okay, that makes sense. The Inyan Tachlis Chokhmah means that general knowledge, it's not intellect generally. No, it means Torah, learning Torah. The Inyan Tachlis Chokhmah, the ultimate expression of this idea, Tachlis Chokhmah Tshuva Meisim Tevim, who Keperish Rashi, is like the Perish of Rashi on that pasuk in Tehillim. It's very interesting what Rashi says. He does not say what we thought. We thought the pshat in the pasuk is, now we're going to say this once more and then we're going to forget it because it's not pshat. But I mean, in all fairness, when you read this, what would you think? The ultimate purpose of learning Torah is to come to a state of Yirah Shamayim and to do mitzvahs. Rashi says that's not pshat in the pasuk. So what is pshat in the pasuk if not that? Well, Rashi says something really quite astounding, and the mimer is trying to explain this Rashi. She'ikara shel Torah, the ikar of Torah, she'yehei, that there should be ima, with it, tshuva meisim tev, tshuva and good deeds. In other words, it's not that learning Torah brings to tshuva and meisim tevim. It's that the ultimate expression of learning Torah is, so to speak, after tshuva and meisim tevim. And without tshuva and meisim tevim, without someone coming to a deep appreciation of their relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu and expressing that relationship in doing mitzvahs, their intellectual act of learning Torah is lacking. The intellect will lack. So the Rebbe is going to ask an obvious question. What in the world is the connection between intellect and tshuva? There's a lot of smart people who didn't do tshuva. There's a connection. That's how Rashi says pshat in the pasuk. Not like we said. We said that Torah leads to Chokhmah, leads to tshuva. No. Rashi says exactly the other way around. Tshuva, then when you learn Torah, you'll understand what you're learning. If not, you won't understand it. How do you understand? You have to do tshuva.
Sorry, I thought Rashi was saying she'ikra Torah she'hei amat tshuva meisim tevim. The point of Torah is
with it. Not leading to it, right? That the ultimate of Chokhmah, which is Torah that has been learned with tshuva and meisim tevim. In other words, I've already done that. Right?
It's the opposite of what we were.
Well, yeah, it's the exact opposite of what we would assume David HaMelech means. Simple pshat, the purpose of Torah is to come to tshuva and meisim tevim. Well, we'd all say that, wouldn't we? I mean, third parak Tanya, Chokhmah bin and das, intellect will lead to proper emotional balance, etc.
How does someone know to do the mitzvah or to do good if they don't know the Torah also? Like, how
So I
does
guess
someone-
there's going to be different levels of learning Torah, there's different understandings of learning Torah. It's a good question. I don't know, have to figure it out. Right? Have to figure it out.
There's one more
We'll
thing.
see it later, but it is interesting already. And I'm not saying this in order to fly a flag. I'm saying this just as an interesting sociological statement. There are some very, very bright Jews who are busy getting PhDs in Talmud in the Hebrew University that's, not far from here, Mount Scopus. These guys are bright, they're brilliant, they're getting PhDs. They sit there for 10 years learning Talmud. Then they become professors teaching Talmud. Since that all started, it's not like it started now, it started in Europe, who knows how long ago, the intellectual learning of Torah. Not one real major Talmud Chacham has ever emerged from any of those programs, which is really interesting.
Really?
Not one.
Not one ever even got this about
Not
Chabad.
one guy who's mamish real.
Really?
That doesn't mean they don't know how to learn. They learn how to learn better
No,
than
that
you.
doesn't know how to learn.
I mean, like the real thing. Not one, ever. Why? Well, it's Rashi. If you learn Torah without tshuva and ma'asim tovim, so then you don't get it. But that's exactly what I was going to ask. What in the world is the connection of intellect to tshuva? What's one got to do the other? Intellect is intellect and tshuva is tshuva. Interesting enough, also in the realm of Kabbalah, right? So the major university figures who learn Kabbalah, all in the footsteps of someone named Gershom Shalom, who used to write, wrote books about Kabbalah for the uninitiated, etc. They didn't get it right. It's all wrong. Meaning real Mekubalim, when they read Gershom Shalom, they say, this guy just didn't get it right. It's all wrong. He just misunderstood the Zohar, he misunderstood it. He knew it all backwards and forwards. The guy was brilliant. And everybody teaching Kabbalah and the Jewish mysticism, they call it. Everybody teaching Jewish mysticism and writing books for the Schocken Publishing Company, which is the company that publishes all these books. So everybody doing that is a student of Gershom Shalom. They don't get it. Interesting. Why not? Doesn't make sense. Right? I remember when I was first here in Eretz Yisrael 45 years ago, I went to a lecture of Gershom Shalom because he was famous and he was speaking in Yerushalayim in English, and we all went to see what he got to say. Some guy got up, American, fun kid, said, "Professor Dr. Shalom, how can you study the Zohar about Shabbos and not keep Shabbos?" So Dr. Professor Shalom said in his deep German accent, he was born in Germany, "Fool! If I were studying Roman history, would I have to wear a toga? I'm a historian." Picking at, he didn't add this, I'm adding this. His words I'll add to, I don't care, because it's not true, so I can add to. Picking at the bones of a dead reality. Never understood it. I mean, you have to I'm not a real Makubal. But Chassidus is not a real Makubal. Ask real Mekubalim whether he understood what he was writing about, and they all say no. Just didn't get it. Brilliant guys. Jews are smart, especially German Jews who are professors in 1925.
My favorite.
The head of the Jewish Mysticism department in the Hebrew University for years and years, and his students then became the heads. I'm sure to this day, it's already the third generation. They didn't get it. It's really interesting. So the Rebbe's going to ask why, and it's a good question. Why not? I understand these people are smart. Torah is just information, right? Why can't smart people figure out any information? It's like I have to be a Roman to understand Roman history? No. I have to wear a toga. So why is Torah any different? See? Umedayik b'zeh, the Friedrich Rebbe learns this carefully, learns this statement of Rashi carefully. This is Rashi and the pasuk in Tehillim. She'ikara shel Torah, the ultimate tachlis. When he says tachlis, he doesn't mean purpose. He means the deepest expression of Torah is when it's learned with tshuva and ma'asim tevim, meaning by someone who's already has some appreciation of Elokus and does mitzvahs. Umedayik b'zeh, and he explains, the Friedrich Rebbe, medayik is from the word diuk, he's careful, exacting. The l'chu'ara, at first glance, ain't a move on this. This is hard to understand. Sharitera ikara hi yediya v'hasoga, v'seichel. Torah, its essence is knowledge and comprehension in intellect, meaning learning Torah. Shuing in chokhmah, that's what chokhmah is, that's what intellect is. Ulazais, and for this reason, mitzvahs limud Torah, the mitzvah of limud Torah, which we all have, Jewish men have this mitzvah called Talmud Torah. So now, when you're performing the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, it has certain laws, like every other mitzvah. You could do something that you think is called learning Torah, but you're not fulfilling the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. What's that? Learn Torah Shabbal Peh, learn oral Torah, like learn a Gemara that you don't understand. You haven't fulfilled the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. Doesn't mean you're doing bad things, keeping you off the street, right? Better than drinking beer in the beer gardens in Machne Yehuda, but it's not. You're not fulfilling the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. Why not? Because Talmud Torah is all about understanding. If you're reading verses in Torah Shebechsav, if you're reading verses in the written Torah, so then you fulfill the mitzvah even though you don't understand the verse. Why? Because the verse itself, the verse is holy. Yeah, the verse is holy. Right? God said it. Okay. But if you're learning Torah Shabbal Peh, what's Torah Shabbal Peh all about? Understanding Torah Shebechsav. The oral Torah is all about understanding the written Torah. So if I don't understand it, I haven't done anything. That's halacha and Shulchan Aruch. Okay. That's why we spend a lot of time around here trying to teach people how to learn a page of Gemara so they can fulfill the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. Right? I mean, that's why we do it, right? So it's not just, you're not just sitting there saying a bunch of words and, oh, wow, this is so holy and I'm so connected to God. Well, if I don't understand what I'm reading, I'm not connecting myself to God because this isn't what God wants me to do. He wants me to understand what I'm doing. Why? Well, he gave me an intellect and I can use it and try to figure this book out. I started late. Okay, so do the hard work, figure it out, and you'll get it done. If you don't do the hard work, it'll eat you up. It's too real. You got to do the hard work. For this reason, the mitzvah of limud Torah, who is shaloimei Torah, that a person learns Torah ba'ofen, in a way, in a fashion, shemevina, that he understands it, b'tam, with reason, v'svara sichlis, an intellectual svara, as far as an idea. He understands what he's learning. That's what it means to learn Torah. Is that what we do? Are we trying to understand it? Uma inyan chochma v'avona v'asoga, and what is the inyan, meaning in this context, ma inyan means what's the connection between the idea of chochma, wisdom, havona, understanding, hasoga, comprehension, l'tshuva ma'asim tevim. Now, the fact that understanding will lead to tshuva and ma'asim tevim, well, that I wouldn't ask about. That's obvious. That's what you asked about, right? I understand. How am I supposed to do this if I don't know what to do? Right, okay, so obviously there's no question about the fact that learning will lead to certain behavior. But that's not what the pasuk says according to Rashi, and that's why the Rebbe is asking a question. Right? Why do I have to have some sort of connection in order to understand? Understanding's got what's understanding got to do with tshuva. Again, understanding leading to tshuva, that I understand, that I get, that's no problem. Understanding as a result of tshuva, what's that got to do with anything? And the Rebbe is going to ask the question a little more powerfully in the next 5 lines. U'maisim tevim she'enim shayachim lavona v'soka dafka. Tshuva and maisim tevim aren't necessarily connected to intellect and comprehension. As a matter of fact, it can definitely be the case that the more, so to speak, intellectual a person is, the less likely they'll do tshuva. Why? Because they're so impressed by their own intellect that they can't get past their own brilliance to actually relate to the fact that maybe God knows more than them. It's often a very serious klipa. Right? Very rarely does a student from Harvard come to Mayanot. They're just so stuck up in their own intellect that they can't imagine that anybody's smarter than them, certainly not God. And certainly not some rabbi who doesn't have a PhD from Harvard. I mean, listen to him. He probably doesn't even think Jews are genocidal. Why would I listen to him? Very hard to get those guys. Why? It's a real klipa. Right? Well, the Rebbe Rashab, who wrote the deepest, most conceptual and complete expose, so to speak, of Chassidus. The Rambam of Chassidus, the Rebbe Rashab is called, the previous Rebbe's father, explaining the statement, Hafatzas Mayanot Chutza, the spreading of the well springs outward, right? Everybody's heard that, right? Spreading the well springs outward. Now, what do most people think spreading the well springs outward means? Getting it to Peoria, Illinois, right? Like that even Peoria, Illinois should have some, Newcastle, Australia should have some Torah. They do. The Ruddles are there now. Baruch Hashem. Okay. That's not what it means. What's Chutza? Human intellect. Getting human intellect to appreciate Torah. So what's human intellect? Human intellect is the most astounding thing created by God. It's also the most dangerous thing created by God because there's only one creature in all of reality that can do something against the will of God, and that's the one that has that thing called intellect. Lions can't do anything against the will of God. The cheetah chasing the gazelle in the plains of Africa, and yes, you and I are rooting for the gazelle. We're, come on, man, run! And the cheetah's running, and the gazelle is running, run, man, run! And the cheetah's, and then all of a sudden the cheetah goes, whap! And he wipes out his back legs, and it's all over. He gets up and he rubs it, it's over, right? And then the next thing you see is the cheetah grabbing its neck and dragging it under a tree. It's not evil, it's lunch. There's nothing wrong with that. So God programmed the world, right? There's nothing evil about that at all. A human being with a gun sitting there going boom, 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 wiping out gazelles, that might be evil. Whether it is or not, that's an interesting question. But it's certainly unnecessary. Cheetahs don't do that. The cheetah will take one and then he'll sit and eat it for the next 2 weeks. And he'll share it with his whole family of it. Don't you go near it, it'll eat you. But he'll share it with whoever is supposed to share in the booty. Right? And it sits there and it's really disgusting. I mean, what does a gazelle taste like after a week sitting out in the sun in the African plains? Ugh, fat. Okay, say they're cheetahs, no problem, right? Okay, there's this thing called intellect. Humans make this horrible mistake and think that intellect is about making a living. Intellect isn't about making a living. If intellect is about making a living, then intellect is the biggest curse that we were ever given, because it's because of intellect that I have to make a living. If I didn't have intellect, I could live under a tree and eat berries, and I wouldn't have to bathe, and I could eat rotten meat 2 weeks later. So human beings waste all this intellect figuring out how to make a living. Education has become basically trade school, which is just really ridiculous. Absolute waste of intellect. All right? Because intellect isn't about making a living. Doesn't mean I don't have to use my intellect to make a living. I do have to use my intellect to make a living, but that's not why I was given intellect. I was given intellect to contemplate godliness and come to an appreciation of what's true. Because again, if intellect is simply to make a living, take it away. It's a curse. The only reason I need a house and a shower and a fridge is because I have intellect. If I didn't have intellect, I wouldn't need it. My dog doesn't need any of those things. He's perfectly happy to sleep under a bridge and eat a rat.
You have a dog?
No, I don't have a dog. All right? I mean, he does well if he happens to be a dog that belongs to a human. So then he sleeps on a carpet and he eats, kennel ration or whatever he eats, right? But he doesn't need that. You and I do. Why? Because we have intellect. I don't want to. You see a human being living like that, so it's very tragic. A human being living like an animal. That's tragic. Why? Because human beings shouldn't have to live like animals. They have intellect. They can live in a much better way, a much more reasonable way. Okay? If that's all intellect is for, take it away. It's a curse. Unfortunately, that's what most of the Western world uses their intellect for, which is just a complete and total waste of time. Doesn't mean you shouldn't use intellect to make it. You have to use it. An electrician is an electrician because he knows something that I don't know, and that's why he comes to fix my electricity. Even though he's using his hands, but it's all because of what he knows up here. But hopefully that's not why he has intellect. Okay. So intellect has to do with contemplating truth. What's that got to do with tshuva? Tshuva, I don't have to be a sophisticated person to do tshuva. As a matter of fact, it might be that the sophistication is hindering me from doing tshuva. Let's see what the Rebbe says. We'll learn another few lines and we'll stop and we'll pick up Sunday morning.
Sorry, in what source, in what mimer did the Rebbe Rashab explain this whole idea? You said that Rebbe Rashab.
It's brought in a Yom. I don't know exactly where. He probably didn't say in the mimer. I said the Sikha was saying this, but it's in a Yom. Exactly which day in a Yom, I don't remember. But say a Yom, just pay attention to a Yom every day and you'll run into it. I don't remember exactly when. There are people. I should know a Yom every day. It was Dafka Shvuos. It used to be that the Tamimim, the students in Yeshiva in 770 would spend the Pesach Seder by the Rebbe. They'd make their own Seder downstairs quickly and then go up to the Frierdiker Rebbe's room, Frierdiker Rebbe's apartment, the third floor of 770, from Tafshin Yud until Tafshin Lamed, so the previous Rebbetzin lived there. I mean, she lived there before with her husband. But after her husband passed away, so then she stayed there. The previous Rebbe's wife, Rebbetzin the Chamadina, our Rebbetzin mother. So she lived in the top of 770. That's where the Frierdiker Rebbe lived. So the Rebbe and his wife would spend Yom Tov with her mother. They'd spend all Yom Tov meals there. So they'd spend Sukkot there, they'd spend Pesach there, and they'd spend Shavuos there. So Pesach was famous and they kept doing this until Tafshin Lamed. The students would go spend Seder night with the Rebbe. They'd make their own Seder downstairs, run upstairs, be let in, and stand around the table and watch and listen to the Rebbe's Seder. I was never there. Anybody who was there said it was one of the most amazing experiences they've ever had in their life. They would also they could go also Shavuos until 1 year. 1 year at the Shavuos table, the Rebbe looked up at the Tamimim and said, ask someone a question in a Yom. So the Rebbe wrote. And they didn't know the answer. The Rebbe said, you don't know a Yom Baal Peh? You don't know a Yom off by heart? What are you doing here? Never let the Tamimim come back to Yom Tov. Only Pesach. Pesach Seder, yes. Any other Yom Tov meal, no. That was the last time any Tamimim were at a Yom Tov meal by the Rebbe except the Pesach Seder. Now, what's really interesting, instead of memorizing a Yom, they just didn't go. But I wouldn't be allowed in either, because I don't know Yom Baal Peh, you see, so. That's what the Rebbe told him. You don't know Yom Baal Peh? What are you doing here? That's it. Never showed up again. The Rebbe is very kind and gentle, but also tough as nails. Reuven Dunan, who was a chassid here in Eretz Yisrael, had a seder in learning Tanya with the Rebbe. And he once showed up 1 minute late. 1 minute. It's the last time he ever learned Tanya with the Rebbe. The Rebbe said, no, he took my time. We're done. Rebbe was tough as nails also. Let's just see what the Rebbe says here. So we'll understand our question. The fourth line begins with, in the middle of the fourth line is the word amnam, which means however. And that word is going to begin a parenthetical mimer that takes a page and a half. Has nothing to do with what we're talking about now. Completely different mimer. So we're going to get up to that, and we'll start that Sunday morning, B'ez Hashem. She'inyan tshuva yeshnei etzel kama noshim pshutim. Right? The Frierdiker Rebbe continues and says, tshuva, you find tshuva by simple people. She'enam bala yediyah v'askola, they're not people of great knowledge and intellectual prowess. Ve'heim mis'erri b'yesir b'tshuva, and they are aroused greatly in tshuva. Now, it used to be in Mayanot, you could say, walk a block from here and see the little Svardish shuls on the road, the little simtaot, the little alleyways between Mayanot and Machne Yehuda, and at 10 to 1 every day, if you walked up that street, you would see little shuls. There would be 9 guys in the shul, one of them standing outside looking for a tent. Why they couldn't daven together, I don't know. But probably because this one was from Tunisia, this one was from Morocco, and this one was from Libya, and they, God forbid, they should daven in the same shul together, these guys. So they were always looking for a tent. And who are these guys? Simple, straight guys, not great Talmid Chachamim. They work for a living. You could tell by their clothes and their hands that they work hard for a living. They would go in there at 1 o'clock to daven mincha, and these are salt of the earth sort of guys, right? Great Talmid Chachamim, no. Belief in God, absolute, rock solid. Right? So right now, there aren't a lot of those left, because people tend to be very sophisticated. They all have these, right? So that takes away that very, very powerful thing called emunah pshuta, simple faith, right? Geula Kohen, who was a very famous lady here in Eretz Yisrael, she fought next to Yitzhak Shamir in the Etzel, and then she became a minister in Begin's government in 1977 when the right wing took over the government. So she was a minister in the government. In 1982, when Begin signed the Camp David deal, so she walked out of the Knesset when Jimmy Carter came to speak, because she was against the deal. She was a tough lady. So she was in Yechidus by the Rebbe. And she said something amazing about the Rebbe. She chapped. She said, he's the most broad-minded intellectual person I've ever met in my life, and he has the emunah of a 5-year-old child. I've never seen anything like it. Emunah pshuta. If it says it in Chazal, it's true. There's nothing to talk about. The Rebbe doesn't fiddle around trying to figure out things so that they'll fit our understanding of the world. If Chazal say it, that's what it means. Okay, what does it mean? Figure it out, but don't change it. It's called emunah, faith, belief. So that belief is often sort of contradictory to intellect. As a matter of fact, it's transcendent of intellect, which we'll talk about some other day, not today, because it's already 8:35. But these Jews, the Friedrich Rebbe is talking about simple Jews. Certainly in Europe there are. There's very few of those left. Baruch Hashem, there's a few left. You have to be here in Eretz Yisrael with this simple Svardische Ma'amin. The Rebbetzin was once asked about her husband. The Rebbe's wife was once asked about her husband. She said a few words about her husband. My man is a Maimin. My man is a Ma'amin. He's a believer. That's what the Rebbetzin said about her husband. Didn't say he was brilliant. Didn't say he was this, holy man. He's a Ma'amin. So we see these people have emunah. They mis'adorim b'yesir b'tshuva. They're aroused very deeply in tshuva. Ubeichin b'mar nafsham, and they cry from the bitterness of their souls. Cried tears of tshuva. U'kamesha anaroyin b'muchash. And as we see in b'muchash means we see with our senses. In other words, we can see with our eyes. Damiris tehillim shalahem, that they are saying of tehillim, he belev nishbars, with a broken heart. That these are very, very real people. And when they say tehillim, they mean it. They're not intellectuals. They're far from intellectuals. And they don't necessarily, there's a lot of people who aren't intellectuals who are very, very smart and know a lot. But the Rebbe is saying that these people are smart, but they don't know a lot. They don't know a lot. But they're serious and real. So what's the connection between intellect and tshuva? That's the Rebbe's question. Now, we're not going to answer that question until page Nun Hey Amnum. Right? We're going to, for the next page and a half, we're going to completely ignore that question. Right? And we're going to ask something else. Not ask, the Rebbe's going to explain something else that's absolutely astounding, and we'll see that Sunday morning. Okay, I gather we just found another copy?
Yes. So is this kind of saying that as you're learning, you can recognize that you're a person here for a reason? and that you're not just learning for the sake of knowing something and having.
Let's see what the Rebbe
a
says.
week of learning, but
Let's
learn
see what
it
the
so that
Rebbe
you
said.
try
Hey,
to
wait,
help
listen carefully, listen carefully.
your actions.
We're in the middle of a minor. Let's see what the Rebbe says. I would guess that even if I get close to thinking what's going to happen next, probably what's going to happen next is better than I could say it myself.
No, Rabbi, see, the thing is that he's only with us for one day, and so he's trying to get to the punchline without needing to stay in Yeshiva.
What, you're here for one day? Well, we better put you on Chassidus Brings Mashiach and you can listen to the end. You don't have to watch it. I wouldn't want to watch this. You have to see my face there. I'm crazy if I had to see that all the time.
So coffee okay in Chassidus for no food?
Coffee, no food, coffee.
And then Margela, befuma, deRava?
Margela, befuma, deRava. That's the name of the minor. What's your name?
Sam,
Sam.
yeah,
Sam from?
New Jersey, but I live in Austin, Texas.
Another Austin, Texas person? This place is just unbelievable.
Well, Rabbi Zev was very insistent that I come here.
Rabbi Zev is the best. What have you been doing when you weren't here?
Well, I just got to Israel.
Uh-huh.
Thanks, Rabbi.